Hello, everyone. It's hard to imagine how fast the time flies, but we're already on the last module for this course. And here to help us to explore the topic of how to work with continuous learning within your team, we have the wonderful Hazel.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Thank you, Joanna.
Yes, because I mean, you need to continue developing your team. This is not something that ends after a couple of weeks or after a project, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably going to be the most interesting and the hardest part, right?
Definitely. I'm going to let you get into your presentation.
Great. Thank you. And thank you for having me here. I'm so excited. I've been part of this online program for the last, seems crazy, but it's been almost a year and a half or two. And every time this module seems to be the one that people want to grasp the most out of, right? Like, and now what? Now that it's done, what can we do? How can we take this forward? And so before I get started with some ideas and some tips to take this forward to your teams, let me introduce myself. So I'm Hazel Swayne, born in Peru, made in New York or in Brooklyn. I like to say that Brooklyn actually made me who I am today now. And I am right now based in the south of London, very snowy. It's crazy to be here with so much snow. And about 2 years ago, my husband and I decided to take our kids out of school and go explore the future of education. So we've been doing that, moving from city to city, from Airbnb to Airbnb, really trying to lead change also and live it as we and I work with clients all over the world, supporting their own transformation. I just felt I had to live it. You know, I kept telling my clients, we need to help you get out of your comfort zone. But then I realized maybe I was in my comfort zone. So almost like walking the talk, right? And I want to share with you an example of a partnership that we did with Mondelez, which is the company behind Oreo and Tuck and Trident and Milka and all these snacks that I'm sure you've had at some point. And funny enough, the reason I am in London right now is because we are running a summit for their marketers this week. And the reason why this is a great story to share is because it brings to life examples of how to take this forward to your teams in very practical ways based on this experience. So everything started with a question. About 3.5 years ago, they came to us and they asked, how can we build a culture that unleashes growth and potential? So imagine that, right? And they were very clear that it had to be learning by doing, but that it was also something that needed to scale, to multiply, to be contagious in a way, right? So that inspiration would embrace new behaviors and not only remain being just a part of something that is inspiring, right? Because then it doesn't mean anything. And so they came to us with a question. And we started developing various things, so very guerrilla style, if you will, right? Because we knew there was a lot of resistance. We knew that we had to meet them somewhere. These were very senior leaders, so imagine that they don't have a lot of time. So we said, okay, well, let's create something where their brains and their muscles can start almost like a workout, right? So where these new behaviors could become habits. But we knew that it had to be just very, very small steps. And we knew that the large KPI was that we wanted to help them develop more creative leadership skills, but that we needed to do daily or weekly supporting metrics, right, that would actually help them achieve this. So we created a 21-day challenge, and we actually used WhatsApp because that's where they were. So I think understanding this concept of meeting people where they are is super key. Sometimes we have these ideals of what kind of tools to use or what kind of experience people need to have. And unless we meet them where they are, it's in my experience, it doesn't gel as well. So this was a complete success that we had with this client. And now we are with them developing this Inspire Action, as we called it, with this partner that we were working with, to trickle it down to 1,200 of their marketers. And the idea behind it is that it can not only be inspiration, because if we go actually back to the initial question, right? How can we build a culture that unleashes the potential to grow? It cannot just be something that is inspiring, right? So that's why we were focusing on bringing this action to the table. And here are some learnings that we got from this experience. So developing new habits as a team was the first one. Empower others to feel part of that. Make it a we project and not a me project. Sometimes we tend to be very protective of how we're taking things forward, especially when it comes to change and transformation, because it's a little bit painful to share with people and to be put down because they don't quite get it, but get them early enough so that they can also influence whatever it is that you're taking forward. And then model these new behaviors and habits. Leading by example, right? It's back to what I was saying at the beginning of my talk. And I want to focus today on habits and how we can build those. And the idea that only through those habits we're going to develop new behaviors, and that from these new behaviors is where really culture and mindset shift, right? And then it becomes ideally it becomes very contagious. Do you have any thoughts or questions, Johanna, before I continue?
Listening eagerly.
Okay, good. And yeah, and so I've kind of made this into a a formula, if you will. It can be something that you use as a starting point, and I'll walk you through each of these to see if which one in your setting would work best to meeting your team wherever they are. So number one, and the most important one, habits can only be replaced. Setting your KPI or your ideal goal of minimum viable effort, because we are humans, and by default we tend to be lazy, right? We want everything to work, and we don't want to have to work extra. That's just by nature of who we are. Habits are contagious, as I was saying earlier. Make a plan. 21 days is what scientists say that turns a new habit into behavior. So trying to stick to that and adding daily supporting metrics so that it doesn't feel so big, but that it feels, what's that 1% that I can do today to reach that goal? And then be aware of your immunity to change. This is amazing. I actually have a daughter who has severe allergies. And so I've learned a lot about the immune system and how it works, and how it reacts to certain threats. And so I came across this idea of the immunity to change. I actually have a tool in this deck that you can use to explore what is your own immunity to change, or your team's immunity to change, right? What is that thing that is going to signal the immune system to go, no, I cannot change. And it tends to be a lot of the times it tends to be things like we don't have time, or we're not going to get approval. It's all those thoughts about our thoughts that we're capable of doing also as the only species on the planet. So replacing existing habits, there are only about 10 hours in the day that you can use. So there's no way that you're going to add a habit, right? So if you're going to train for a marathon, there's something, even if you have to run 5 minutes every day, you're going to have to give something up. So whether that's habits that you know that you have, or habits that you don't know you have, like how many minutes you spend on Facebook. I actually did, I downloaded an app to see how much I was spending on Facebook, because I was trying to work on this project that I knew I needed to create new habits for, but I couldn't get to it. And then someone said, well, what are the habits that you don't know you have, that you're not aware you have? And then I realized I was spending about 45 minutes a day on Facebook. So during Monday through Friday, I delete Facebook from my phone, and then on the weekends I put it back. So it's become now a different experience as well. But now I took something else so something else could come in. And so that's super key and super important. Your minimal viable effort. Being a pessimist, I'm by nature an optimist. So if you tell me, hey, Hazel, let's do this project or this work, like, yes. And then let's go to the moon tomorrow. Yes, of course. And then we can come back and then take the Hyperloop to to Stockholm, right? Yeah, sure. But I've learned that I have to also play on the other side, on the side of, okay, so if I think I'm going to be able to do 15, 20 minutes of something, let me stick to 3. Because realistically, with everything that's on our plates today, it's not going to be possible. So yeah, small changes. Focus on the 1% that you can do every day, consistently, right? That's key. Then your habits being contagious, and this is something that, as I am homeschooling my kids, I can see, right? Like I'm also experimenting with this, and I can see that if I speak about something or I tell them to do something, and the same with my teams, right? It's not going to gel as much as if I start doing it. And then they go, they see what happens to me with these new habits, and they go, oh, I want whatever she's having. So Hazel, what are you doing differently? Why are you speaking so much about mindfulness or meditation? Like, how I feel you're so centered. Well, I'm doing this. I don't know, I'm using Headspace every morning for 3 minutes because I know it's the only thing I can do. Oh, wow, I can see. Okay, yeah, send me the app. But you see that because you kind of, there's a perfect word in Spanish, which is emana, like you radiate a new you, right? A new way of being. And people want that. People also see that. Same with the negative, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I'm also thinking that this is something that I really feel also applies to like an office setting. Because I think like just at our office in Stockholm, for an example, I think that every time we just came out of the module about conflicts last week and talking a lot about feedback. And every time we're having a feedback session in my team, I know that when we come out, there's a lot of it like what were you doing? It looked really like nice. It's like a good atmosphere, and because we have windows on that room that we're in as well, and people are walking by. It's like, looks nice. I don't know what they're doing, and then starting talking about, well, it's feedback, and we're doing it this way, and it sort of trickles down. And okay, maybe we'll try that this week as well. And
yeah, and I think you're bringing such a good point, Johanna, that I was actually forgetting. Making it visible, right? So the fact that you just said the windows. And this could also work for remote teams, right? If you are working remotely, which I know a lot of people do today, and you use Slack or any kind of communication tool, making that visible, like putting a post or a picture of something that you guys just did as a team, where you're creating new habits and how you're doing it, so people can also see that. It's just super important as well, so that other people want to be a part of that.
But it also, like you say, about the bad stuff. I mean, if people are stressed and running around, or that also spreads in a second, and it's so visible. And yeah, it's creating a culture of it, whether you want it or not, I guess.
Yeah, there's a great exercise that we've used at Hyper, which is the bus. Have you ever done it? The bus exercise, where you have a driver.
Oh yeah.
And everyone draws one kind of paper that tells you what kind of mood you're going to be on when you jump on the bus. So the driver's just driving, but everybody has to imitate that mood, right? And so if a happy person jumps on the bus, then everyone is happy. And then if the mad guy jumps on the bus, everybody gets mad. But it's so contagious. It's so amazing to see how you can switch. Just if somebody's stressed, by nature, we're all going to be stressed around it. But if someone keeps the cool down, yeah. I kind of digress there, but yeah. We can even paste that exercise. I think we have it in the toolbox.
Yes.
So the idea that there needs to be a plan, the vision from higher, right? So even though we need to focus on those supporting metrics daily, just to feedback to ourselves that we're doing something, that progress is happening, there's also important behind looking into, okay, so what are we going to do? What is our goal? So with this client that I mentioned earlier, the partnership that we did, we've had really clear expectations of where we want to go, but then we're very flexible with how to get there, right? So allowing also room for emergence and and new things to pop is important, but just having that bird's eye view from the 10,000 foot view is also super key. And then the last one that I mentioned is being aware of your immunity to change. We love to be comfortable. We love to just have our routines, business as usual. And we tend to run on autopilot, right? Most of the time, unless we're practicing some kind of mindfulness and awareness tools, we all tend to run on autopilot. And so our autopilot becomes then our immune system, because it's our DNA in a way, right? It's what we're used to, is what we're comfortable with, what we don't want anyone disrupting. And so being aware of that, and especially in teams, I love doing this with my teams, because we also know from each other, and you can learn with each other, where to go and where not to go, and where to push, or when these things come up, the immune system kicks off to recognize it. And so this tool right here, the immunity map, it's not super easy. So, it takes like an hour or two to go through it well done with your team, but it's super useful. Maybe when you're kicking off, a 6-month project where you have different sprints and you're going to have different people coming in and out, I think it could be a great tool that you can use. I highly recommend it. Not for like the smaller ones, but for things like that is very useful.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and that's from my side is what I have to share with you. I look forward to connecting and to answer any questions that you would have. Johanna, I don't know if you want to answer anything else, or you want me to go to the next slide?
You can go to the next slide, and we can explore a little bit about what tasks and workshop that we have recommended for you to do this week to get your hands dirty and some experience before we talk to Hazel again on Thursday. And some of the suggested tasks is to get together with a couple of colleagues and introduce the analogy of your team having an OS, so like an operating system, and that determines how you work together. So take some time to discuss and talk about what defines you. And for an example, do you have a playbook? Do you have a culture deck? Do you have a handbook? And does that help you, or does it hold you back? And in what different ways could that OS look? You can also sit down with your colleague or your whole team and introduce the Kaizen philosophy and how small changes and iterations can support you in the continuous development. And see if you can find small actions that can actually help you change in a bigger way or improve your team. And as always, like on the next slide, we have a couple of workshops as well that you can try out. You can read more about them in the learning kit. Sorry. So if you go further on the slides, Hazel, to the next one again, that's just the last couple of reminders, and that is to complete your reflection journal before Sunday and to, again, take advantage of the learning groups. And I'm so happy to see that there's a lot of workshops that you run this week, and there's more coming up, so continue to learn to share the pictures from them so that we can discuss them together. And as always, I'm on Slack, so if you have any questions, just ask me there. And we'll see you next week, Hazel.
Yes, I'm going to stop the sharing now so they can see us. Great. Yes, and I'm super excited. I can't wait.
Same for me. Okay.
Thank you.
See you then.
Bye-bye.